Hi, I'm Paul Riedner. You're listening to the first episode of CE5 Minneapolis, a podcast miniseries about the starting of a CE5 research team. It'll be a weekly show exploring how CE5 actually works, providing a behind-the-scenes story of Kevin, Adam, Mike, and myself as we attempt to make contact with extraterrestrial life from the stars. Yep, no shit. I'll be the host and the narrator. I'll be giving you the most honest and transparent look that I can about a topic so shrouded in mystery, misinformation, and a culture of ridicule that it's easier to dismiss than to discuss openly. This first episode will be unlike the rest, as I try to give some backstory to what is the most complex and long-running cover-up of this world. Former U.S. President Jimmy Carter was quoted saying, "I don't laugh at people anymore when they say they've seen UFOs. I've seen one myself." I first heard about the Disclosure Project on November 11, 2011, when two Army dive buddies visited for my wife's birthday party. This is my brother James.
Yeah, I remember walking around with you and Ben in the night, drunk, talking about whether or not human beings can walk through walls and alien encounters and all that stuff. Yeah. Remember I told you guys that I saw that documentary that blew my mind. Not documentary, but the speakers go up one by one and swear that they would swear under oath in front of Congress that the things they said were true. A lot of them, most of them military with clearances that I'd never even heard of.
I held a top secret crypto level 14 extra sensitive material handling security clearance.
I held a top secret SCI TK clearance.
So as high as TK, Omni, crypto, and others.
The way I explained it for you guys, so you wouldn't think I was crazy, is I told you why I believed it, or why I gave it a chance, or why I was interested in it and kept going, because there's tons of YouTube stuff that I've seen where I turn it off in 3 seconds because it's cheap, it's not believable. What really got me after, and believe me, after that guy started singing for the first couple seconds, I was like, oh man.
I was Richard Tyler's original understudy. I sang the words to dream the impossible dream, to fight the unbeatable foe, to bear with unbearable sorrow, to run where the brave dare not go. I'm here to introduce your host this morning, Dr. Stephen Greer.
But then Dr. Greer came up and he just seemed super down to earth. I understood his language very easily. And for some reason trusted him.
Members of the press, the American public, and people of the world. We are here today to disclose the truth about a subject that has been ridiculed and questioned, denied for at least 50 years. The men and women who are on this stage and the some 350 additional military intelligence witnesses to the so-called UFO matter and extraterrestrial intelligence can prove and will prove that we are not alone.
When we were in the desert, do you remember that it was at KMB, there was a kind of like a crazy looking black dude who worked at the mail office. Mm-hmm. Remember that tiny little shack, the mail office?
Yeah.
Well, he had a diver's cap on. And he saw us coming in there all the time with our black and golds and gold and blacks and whatever, and he he made a comment to me one time. He's like, and he had a black knit cap with Mark V on it.
Yep.
And he said something to me. He's like, "Oh yeah, I was in the Navy, man. The saturation divers. Oh man, you wouldn't believe what we got down there. You wouldn't even believe it." And after seeing this documentary, that memory clicked back. And I'm like, holy shit. He's right, I can't imagine what they got down there. What they've been doing without us knowing for so long.
Wow, you kind of wish you could go back and ask another question, huh?
Yeah, I've thought about that many times.
But what did you think at the time?
At the time, I was watching a bunch of other documentaries, as you know, in the desert. So what I said back to him was, yeah, I can't believe it. Just kind of like shrugging it off, but at the same time admitting that, yeah, you're right.
Right.
There's so much that I don't know. But then after seeing the Disclosure Project, and these people describing the things that they saw came out of the water, it painted a whole new picture, and it made me really try to imagine what the hell could be going on.
My name is Dan Willis. In 1969, I received a priority message from a ship near Alaska. The ship reported emerging out of the ocean near Port Bow, a brightly glowing reddish-orange elliptical object, approximately 70 feet in diameter, emerged out of the water, shot into space, traveling at about 7,000 miles per hour. This was tracked on ship's radar and substantiated.
So I'm going to play a few more testimonies from the National Press Club event, but I just wanted to say really quick that my thinking about extraterrestrials really changed when I heard these accounts about extraterrestrials from underwater, just like James mentioned there. It made me think that there's really no reason why extraterrestrials have to be coming from outer space. They could be here with us. There's a lot we don't know about this planet. So bear with me as I find a rhythm and a workflow for this show, but I might occasionally share a relevant clip like this next one you're going to hear. Now, I've been going around and asking random people about their experiences or beliefs about UFOs. And sure as shit, here's a water account. Hey, can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
I'm doing a podcast. I'm just gathering people's experiences. Have you ever seen a UFO?
No, I haven't.
Has anyone, like a family or friend close to you, seen anything that they told you about?
Yeah, my brother did.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Can you tell me about it?
He said he was on a lakefront in Chicago, Lake Michigan. He said he was out there with a bunch of friends, and he saw something shoot up out the water. And he saw it take off. And he said it was on the news the same day, so...
Do you remember when this was?
It was a few years back.
Okay, so I hope you can appreciate what this looked like with me walking around a mall asking random people about UFOs. They definitely were not all that fruitful, like the gentleman whose brother saw something come out of Lake Michigan. And I know what you're probably thinking right now. Maybe not the most hard-hitting research and journalism approach you've ever seen, but people are people too. Excuse me, ma'am. Can I ask you a question for my podcast? No? Okay. Questions for my podcast.
Oh,
Yeah? So I'm making a podcast. It's like an investigative journalism.
okay.
And we're trying to solve the question, not solve the question, but sort of like explore the question of the truth behind UFOs. Have you ever seen a UFO? Excuse me, sir. I'm doing a story about the UFO phenomenon. Have you ever seen a UFO?
No,
Has any of your friends or family seen one?
I don't think so.
No? They never said anything about it?
No.
I'm doing a podcast about the UFO cover-up. And so I'm just asking people about their own experiences. So have you ever seen anything weird in the sky?
No, not really, except for stars. That's about it.
Does anyone that you, in your like close circle of like family or friends, had anything happen to them?
No. But I do watch a lot of alien movies, though.
What do you think about them?
Well, I think, like, if the aliens ever come to the world, I think it'd be pretty cool. Because, I mean, I'd be friendly to them because they're coming from another planet, and it's nice to, like, see aliens come from another planet. I want it to happen. Like, I do want aliens to come to the world because I want to see if it's going to actually, like, change the whole world, or if it's going to scare everybody, they're going to really come and kill us and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. How sweet is that? Even though Hollywood has consistently written storylines about aliens having some sinister plot to attack us, this girl's instincts are to be friendly with them. Since they've traveled so far to visit us, now that's Minnesota nice right there. Which touches on a thread that we'll definitely get into later, and that is the idea that there are good ETs and evil ETs. I'll just say for now that it's helpful to think about ETs as people, at least for me. I consider them as my ancestors. And I don't think my ancestors would do something to harm me. And more on that later. For now, I want to play a few more clips from the National Press Club conference from May of 2001. Keep in mind that this is meant to share what is already known and disclosed, but not being reported. If we can recognize the game that's being played, maybe then we can win.
A Airman Second Class was in the dark room at that time. I was also an Airman Second Class. I was interested in how the whole process functioned, how the data got from the lunar orbiter to the laboratory. Asked the young man if he described the process to me. He did. About 30 minutes into the process, he said to me, in a very distressed way, by the way, we've discovered a base on the backside of the moon.
So I just want to add something real quick about the base on the other side of the moon that Carl Wolf is testifying about. To me, I don't know that that's extraterrestrial at all. I have major questions about the history of the human race. I leave that one up to just another mystery on this planet of who we are and how we got here.
And then he proceeded to put photographs down in front of me, and clearly in these photographs were structures, mushroom-shaped buildings, spherical buildings, and towers. And at that point, I was very concerned because I knew we were working on compartmentalized security. He had breached security, and I was actually frightened at that moment. And I did not question him any further. And a few moments later, someone did come into the room. I worked there for 3 more days, and I remember going home and naively thinking, I can't wait to hear about this on the evening news. And here it is, more than 30 years later, and I hope we hear about it tonight. And I will testify under oath before Congress that what I'm saying is the truth.
My name's Clifford Stone. I was a Sergeant First Class, United States Army. I had a secret clearance with nuclear surety. I could get the clearance that I needed to do whatever it was that was necessary for me to do at the time on special operations when I was called in on those. What I'm referring to here is that I was involved in situations where we actually did recoveries of crashed saucers, for lack of a better term, debris thereof. There were bodies that were involved with some of these crashes, also some were alive. While we were doing all this, we were telling the American public there was nothing to it. We were telling the world there was nothing to it. I've been involved where we have recovered these objects. We know them to be of extraterrestrials. In 1969, I had an event that happened to me while I was stationed at Fort Lee, Virginia. We went to Indiantown Gap, Pennsylvania. That would be my first exposure to any time that we would be recovering an unidentified flying object. When we went there, we already had people that was already in the facility. We were a backup team, which was supposed to be NBC because there was supposed to be some nuclear materials that was on board this craft. Later on, most people involved were to be told that there was nothing on board it. It was nothing more than just a crash of one of our aircraft. I know better because I was one of the people that approached it with a Geiger counter to get surface readings. I was the first person to go ahead and see that there were bodies on it. That would be the first of approximately 12 events. UFO crashes are not events that take place every day. They're rare. I know we're not alone in the universe. I know that the absence of evidence is not evidence of absence. It's evidence that has been denied to the American people. I stand before you today in my almighty God, and I tell you this. If Congress calls me in and says, will you testify in detail what you know, I stand here today prepared and ready to do just that. Governments must never lie to the people. Thank you.
My name is Mark McCandlish, and for the last 21 years, I have worked as a conceptual artist for a variety of defense contractors. Spoke to a gentleman by the name of Kent Sellen that I met at an air show at Edwards Air Force Base in 1992, the first unveiling publicly of the B-2 bomber. He indicated to me that in 1973, when he was a crew chief working on experimental aircraft at Edwards Air Force Base, that he had unintentionally wandered into an area where there was a classified aircraft, namely the ARV. A member in Congressman Brown's office not only confirmed the exhibit, but the fact that there were 3 discs at that exhibit. These discs were hovering off the floor without any visible means of support. They were referred to as alien reproduction vehicles, also nicknamed the flux liner because they used high voltage electricity. Subsequently, I've done a lot of research on this product, this vehicle. I've come across a number of declassified documents that show that the Air Force, as early as 1960, was wind tunnel testing flying saucer shapes up to Mach 20. And I also have declassified NASA documents that show similar shapes. In fact, this is the document here that was declassified, and it shows a variety of spherical and lenticular shapes that were flight tested up to, or I should say, wind tunnel tested up to Mach 6.
My name is Daniel Sheehan. I'm an attorney and serving as general counsel to the Disclosure Project. I'm a 1967 graduate of Harvard College in American Government Studies and Constitutional Law, and a graduate of Harvard Law School. And I served as general counsel and one of the co-counsel for the New York Times in the Pentagon Papers case, and was involved in briefing and arguing the case in front of the United States Supreme Court, giving permission to the New York Times to publish the classified documents, the 47 volumes of the Pentagon Papers. In 1977, that I was contacted by Ms. Marcia Smith, who was the director of the Science and Technology Division of the Congressional Research Service. She asked to meet with me, and I met with her, and she informed me that President Carter, upon taking office in January of 1977, held a meeting with then the Director of Central Intelligence, who was George Bush Sr., and demanded that the Director of Central Intelligence turn over to the President the classified information about unidentified flying objects and the information that was in the possession of the United States intelligence community concerning the existence of extraterrestrial intelligence. This information was refused to the President of the United States by the Director of Central Intelligence, George Bush Sr. The Director insisted that the President, in order to have access to this information, needed to have clearance to contact the Congressional Research Service, to contact the United States House of Representatives Science and Technology Division, to have them undertake a process to declassify this information, because the DCI suspected that the President was preparing to reveal this information to the American public. The Congressional Research Service Science and Technology Division, under the directorship of Marcia Smith, was contacted by the House Science and Technology Committee and instructed to undertake a major investigation of the existence of extraterrestrial intelligence and the relationship of the UFO phenomenon to this. I was contacted by Ms. Smith and asked, in my capacity as general counsel to the United States Jesuit Headquarters, National Social Ministry Office, to see if we could obtain access to the Vatican Library, to obtain the information that the Vatican had with regard to extraterrestrial intelligence and the phenomenon of the UFOs. I pursued that with the permission of Father William J. Davis, the director of the National Office, and we were refused access. as the United States Jesuit order to the information in the possession of the Vatican Library. When I reported this to Ms. Smith, she then later subsequently asked me to participate in a project which I can go into some detail during the question and answer period or later to individuals, pursuant to which I was given access to, as a special consultant to the United States Library of Congress Congressional Research Service, to the classified portions of the Blue Book project of the Air Force. At that point, approximately May of 1977, I went to the Madison building of the United States Library of Congress. There was no one in the building at that time. It was brand new. I was directed to a basement office where there were two guards at the door and a third sitting at the table who took my identification, verified that I'd been designated as a special consultant to the Congressional Research Service of the United States Library of Congress, and was admitted to the room. I thereupon found photographs, some dozen photographs, of what is unquestionably an unidentified flying object on the ground that had crashed and plowed a furrow in a field of snow, and it was embedded in an embankment. There were United States Air Force personnel surrounding this craft, taking photographs of the craft. And one of the photographs, I could see that there were some symbols on the side of the craft. And so I proceeded through the photographs and found a close-up photograph of these symbols. I'd been instructed that I was to take no notes and had to leave my briefcase and all my identification outside of this room, but I had brought with me a yellow pad. And so what I did is I opened up the yellow pad and refocused the overhead camera onto the same size as the cardboard backing of the yellow pad, and I physically traced the copies of the symbols on the side of this craft, closed the yellow pad back, put the microfiche back into the canister, reclosed the box that I had, and I said, it is time for me to leave. And I took this and proceeded to leave the office, at which point the security guards stopped me, and one of them said, what is that you have there, Mr. Sheehan? At which point I handed the yellow pad to him, and he flipped through all the yellow pages and never found the copy that I had. And so I took that with me and brought it to the United States Jesuit headquarters, had a meeting with the staff, with Father William J. Davis, reported this to them, was authorized at that time by the United States Jesuit headquarters to make a report to the National Council of Churches and to request that the entire 54 major religious denominations of our country undertake a major study of extraterrestrial intelligence, which they declined to do. I also served as chief counsel in the Iran-Contra case. It was the first one to testify before the United States Congress to the existence of the off-the-shelf enterprise of Richard Secord and Albert Hakim. I'll be more than happy to share the details of what I believe to be the relationship between this off-the-shelf enterprise and the secret government, which is concealing this information from the American public. And I am happy and proud to serve as general counsel to the Disclosure Project. Thank you very much.
Now we're starting to get a sense of the sheer magnitude of the UFO matter. There's energy suppression, alien reproduction vehicles, a base on the other side of the moon, and even a Vatican role here. But just so we're on the same page, this is the backstory. This podcast isn't necessarily trying to discuss this stuff. That's way out of my ballpark, and we won't be trying to convince you of any of this. There's plenty of qualified, legitimate sources if you care to dig further on this. But if this doesn't blow your hair back, then I don't know what would.
My name is Carol Rosen. In 1974, after being a sixth grade school teacher, I was introduced to the late Dr. Wernher von Braun in the U.S., the father of rocketry. In my first meeting with him, during that first 3.5 hours, he said to me, Carol, you will stop the weaponization of space. And I said, teachers don't stop until June. He said, no, you have to understand, this is February, and we have to prevent the weaponization of space because there is a lie being told to everyone that the weaponization of space is now first being based upon the evil empire, the Russians. There are many enemies, he said, against whom we're going to build this space-based weapon system. The first of whom was the Russians, which was existing at that time. Then there would be terrorists. Then there would be third world countries. Now we call them rogue nations or nations of concern. Then there would be asteroids. And then he would repeat to me over and over, and the last card, the last card, the last card would be the extraterrestrial threat. Well, at the time, I kind of laughed when he said asteroids, and when he said extraterrestrials, I knew I wasn't going to deal with that subject. And I've been waiting until this day for 27 years, and I'm expecting the spin to happen, because he also explained to me that as a military strategist, as a person who worked on the MX missile, which I did later, he said, you will find that there is going to be a spin to find some enemy against whom we have to build space-based weapons. And now we should expect the spin, because he said part of the formula for the intelligence community is if they might have a weapon, then we have to consider that they do have these weapons. So now they do have these weapons, so now we have to build these weapon systems. And that's the formula, except that it's all based on a lie. And we have witnesses here today that have shown you that these extraterrestrial beings, that these craft that have come here are now not UFOs, they're identified flying objects, and we know that they have beings in them. And we have witnesses here who have told you that they can shut down our missile silos, they can stop a rocket going into space that's a test. We have witnesses here who have worked in the classified departments, who have the courage to come forward here to support what Wernher von Braun told me back in 1974 to 77. And I will testify before the Congress that when I founded the Institute for Security and Cooperation in Outer Space, which I shut down a few years ago because I didn't believe we had a chance with this huge, integrated around the world, complex weapon system, that we had any chance at all of transforming that war industry into a space industry that could provide benefits, like Dr. Greer has said, of global warming. We can end that situation of that problem. We can end the energy crisis. We can build now non-polluting technologies. Wernher von Braun used to tell me that we could have cars back then that drove around off the ground. He described this to me on beams so that we have no pollution on this planet. And we can solve the problems of the people that are urgent and potential, and the other animals and the other cultures on Earth and in space. And we can end the arms race without dislocating the industry jobs, without disrupting the economy, by transforming, Wernher von Braun told me, the war industry into a global cooperative space industry that will provide, he said, finally, more jobs and profits on this planet than during any hot or cold wartime, more products and services that can be applied directly to solving the problems of this planet. And we can have a whole planet now that lives in peace on Earth, with all the cultures on Earth and with all the extraterrestrial cultures in space. And these are words that Wernher von Braun told me in 1974, and I will testify before the Congress under oath about everything I have said and more. Thank you.
I'd like to thank each of the witnesses and for your patience. We're running about 50 minutes late, and I do apologize for that. I want to emphasize that all of these witnesses each could speak for probably anywhere from 2 to 5 hours about what they have witnessed. We were trying to give you a snapshot. We have another 400 of these witnesses. I have carried this burden for 8 years. I'm now giving it to you, the American people and the people of the world, to take it forward.
I'm so thankful for the guys on CE5 Minneapolis. They've really encouraged me as I prepared to tell this story. Kevin, he was the first one to reach out on the Contact Network app and get together. And wow, 3 weeks after we met, he was in Florida at Dr. Greer's training workshop. And he witnessed one of the most incredible events ever recorded. Twin ships. You'll soon get to hear his story. It's an inspiring one. So 2 days ago, I was up very late at night working on the website, CE5Minneapolis.com, and editing audio. And I had been facing some pretty good resistance as I got closer to launching this first episode. So I took a break and I went outside with Dexter. And for South Minneapolis, the stars were actually out pretty darn good. So I looked up towards the western horizon and said in my head, am I doing the right thing by going public with this podcast? But the moment I finished this question, literally 1 second afterwards, a green streak of light flies through the part of the sky that I'm speaking to. I smiled, said thank you, and went to bed peacefully. Up next, a scene from the next episode of CE5 Minneapolis, where I tell the whole story of my first incredible contact experience. So at this point, I'm starting to get nervous. Even that's understating it quite a bit. I'm scared. I mean, the lights in the sky are one thing, but this thing was as big as a building and right in front of me. Holy shit. To subscribe to upcoming episodes of CE5 Minneapolis, go to iTunes or go to CE5Minneapolis.com. The music on this and future episodes is from Rhymesayers Entertainment, a Minneapolis-based independent hip-hop label. We hope you will support their artists if you'd like some of the music that you heard on this show. They do it right.
We constantly keep elevating the hustle, the music, the ethic, muscle, the movements, the methods.
We'll be on the lookout for other organizations, companies, and leaders that are also doing it right. Send your nominations to info@ce5minneapolis.com. And thanks to Leon J. down at Slam Academy. Wub, wub, wub. I'm producing this podcast entirely with Ableton Live, and they're the spot to go to in Minneapolis if you need help with that. You're the man, Leon. Finally, I'll be attending the Global Ambassador Training in California next month. If you have specific questions about CE5 protocols that you think would assist so that you can take that next step, post them on the customer reviews for CE5 Minneapolis podcast on iTunes and any other feedback about the show, and I'll see if Dr. Greer would be willing to field the most helpful questions on the podcast. Thanks for listening, and please rate and review the show on iTunes to help the show find other concerned citizens. I'm Paul Riedner. See you on the next episode of CE5 Minneapolis.